Hello, and welcome to the Let Them Live podcast. I'm Emily Burning, your host, and also the president and co-founder of Let Them Live. We bring you interviews with unsung heroes and inspiring individuals who are in the fight to save babies, mothers, and fathers from abortion. Our goal is to amplify their voices and bring their stories to the forefront, shedding light on the incredible work they do and the lives they touch. This is more than just a podcast. It's a platform that allows everyone to share their pro-life stories and inspire us to passionately continue advocating for life. Thank you guys so much for joining. I am so excited. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Victoria, and she's one of our pregnancy counselors. And I'm really excited for you guys to get to hear a little bit more about her. She has such a big heart for the moms that we help. And I know that she's going to have just a lot of words of wisdom, a lot of great advice to share. So welcome, Victoria.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to see you. It's been a while since we talked last. This is a little bit more formal, but we'll make it casual. Maybe we'll just start off. Maybe tell me a little bit about your personal story, like how you became pro-life, or, what led you to becoming a pregnancy counselor, what led you to Let Them Live.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool story. So I was raised in a Christian home, so we were always, pro-life. And basically, once I was in my 20s, I guess my early 20s, it was kind of really weighing heavy on my heart that abortion is very prevalent. And when I would hear the actual numbers of how many babies were being aborted every year, it was just mind-boggling to me. And it was really, as time would go by, it was weighing heavier and heavier on my heart. And I felt like a guilt that I wasn't doing something about it. So initially, an old friend of mine, we started to kind of look into it as to what we could do, maybe locally. That wound up not really coming to fruition. Her and I lost touch. She was working a lot. I think she wound up moving to Arizona or something, but it was still in the back of my head. And I was he's now my husband. He was my boyfriend at the time. I just felt like this is something that I need to be involved in. And finally, one night after we were married, I was working third shift from home. I was a customer service rep. And I worked third shift. So in between calls, I was actually listening to Jeff Durbin's Apologia Studio podcast. And he had a guest on. His name was AJ Hurley. And I'd never heard of him, but AJ was talking about the Justice for the Five movement. So I don't know if you know what that was, but yes. I was listening and I was totally glued in. And, they went into detail about everything, and they showed the pictures of these babies, which is something that you will never unsee. It's something you'll never forget. I knew right then and there that for me, I felt that God was telling me it would be a sin for me if I didn't try to do something. So I didn't have social media at the time, but I downloaded Instagram. I actually tried to find AJ Hurley, thinking DC is only a couple hours from me. So what can I do? How can I help? And I found him and I messaged him. I thought, I'm nobody. Why would he get back to me? He probably has so many people reaching out to him and talking to him, and he's speaking on different podcasts. Why would he answer me? But he did. And he answered me pretty quickly too. I think it was less than 24 hours. So he got me connected with someone who got me connected with someone locally. Her name's actually Sarah. She's from Love Life, the local chapter where I live. And I was trying to do, research zip codes for churches for her to, kind of be involved if they had their kind of little adopt a mom program, but it still felt like I wasn't, there was more I was supposed to do. And I could feel God nudging me. So since I had created that Instagram account, I was scrolling through and pro-life feeds and stuff were coming up. And I saw one, I don't know if it was a baby registry or if it was a fundraising thing, but it was from a place called Let Them Live. And I clicked on it. I'm like, oh, what's this? And then I went to their
Who's
website.
That?
Yeah. And I had not heard of it, but I was looking at the website and everything and what they do. And I was just like, yes, I felt God telling me this is where you're going to go. So the next day I called or I emailed, and it was Evangeline, who I guess is in head of communications. And I told her quickly, God's telling me to do this, so what do you guys want me to do? So she suggested pregnancy counseling, talking to Holly. I did. And, I told Holly, I said, at this point, if I don't do something, I feel like I'm Jonah running away from Nineveh. And then they got me started, and it's just crazy the amount of
The
time
rest is
that goes
history.
by. Yeah, it's really crazy.
Yeah. No, and I do want to say AJ is amazing. He's a good friend of ours. I am
Cool.
really glad that you got connected through the movement, through him. He is just such a passionate person, and that like shows through his activism. So I'm
Yeah.
really glad that, all these things happen for you to come across us and find us. And, just like so many other people, like, Instagram was the thing that brought everyone together for Let Them Live, it seems like.
Really? That's so crazy. Yeah,
So,
because I didn't even,
oh,
I mean, I had been done with social media for years because a lot of it it was just so much political arguments. And I was like, I just can't, my brain.
right.
So I had gotten rid of it,
No,
but
I'm
for
the
this
same way.
purpose.
I'm
Yeah.
like, can we not with the political stuff? I'm just so tired.
Yeah.
It is. It is. So let's talk more about. So, how long have you been a pregnancy counselor with Let Them Live?
It's actually been with Let Them Live, it's been for less than a year. So I started, I think, at the beginning of August.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's cool. So, like 7 months, right? Is that like
Yeah.
7 months? That's amazing. I mean, and a lot can happen in that time as a pregnancy
Yes.
counselor. So, I'm sure that you've experienced so much. And as a counselor that's trying to help these moms, reconsider abortion, what are certain things that you try to incorporate in your conversations that can help them kind of see it from a different perspective? Like, how do you encourage them?
Yeah, it can be a case by case basis. I mean, one of the things that I make sure I tell every single mom when they come in is that number one, we're so thankful that they reached out to us because it is not easy for someone. Number one, being pregnant isn't easy in general, no matter your circumstance, but an unplanned pregnancy and a crisis pregnancy is not easy. And on top of that, when you feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you, and you don't know what to do and you're searching for help, and then you're going to be vulnerable enough to call really strangers and ask them for support and ask them for help, that takes a lot of strength to be vulnerable and to reach out and ask for help. So I always just thank them for being strong. It's very admirable of them.
Yeah.
Another thing that I try to do is to, it's when you're the one in that situation, it's really hard to see any light at the end of the tunnel. Everything feels like it's impossible. So when I'm on my very first conversation with a new mom, I try to, listen to her whole situation and kind of do an overview and say, look, these are the things that are working out in your favor. I know that it might not look like that, but I mean, and that could be anything from, you currently have a stable job that's working in your favor, or you have a good support system around you.
Yeah.
Or, this is the same father of your previous children, or whatever. And then
Like
I
little
also,
wins, right? Like,
yes, because they matter.
mhm.
Yeah, they do matter. And then ultimately, letting them know, it's true that life has inherent value. And as difficult as it might be for some moms to hear, our circumstances don't determine a life's worth. I mean, it can be hard, it can be scary. And I always let them know you are so entitled to feel scared. No one's going to give you a hard time that you feel stuck and you feel scared. But in the end, this, and usually the moms know that, and or else they wouldn't have reached out to us. They
Right.
reach out to us because they have that voice in the back of their head. They know.
Right, exactly. And it does take a lot for them to reach out. A lot of moms that I've worked with as well, they not pride in a bad way, but they have pride in the sense that they have up to this point been able to provide, for themselves, or they've been able to make it work out. And it's hard for them to reach out. It's hard. It's hard for me to ask for help. Like, I can imagine being in that same situation. And I like what you said. Everyone is telling me different answers, which is amazing. Like, on the different interviews. Well, you're my second one, so we'll see. I'm sure there's other ones, but like I haven't really heard that before in that perspective of just sharing with them what's going good, because there might be so much negativity in their life, like from their family or friends or father of the baby. So I think that that's really encouraging, and all the moms that have you as their counselor are just so lucky, and so blessed.
Thank
And
you.
in your conversations with them, do you find that most of these moms are like willing to receive that? Like they're willing to receive advice, take that advice, or do you see more like pushback, like defensiveness when you offer like advice?
I almost always, they receive it really, really well. There's been some moms who defensive maybe, but they'll hear something that's either working in their favor or something, and I'll hear a lot of I know, but. And that's when I just try to tell them, like, you're entitled to your fear. You're entitled to be nervous, or that right now in this moment, you don't see how things could work. And I just remind them that, one of my goals as their pregnancy counselors is to help them create goals and to help them execute those goals. And down the line, as the pregnancy goes on, to help them, analyze the goals again and change things and rearrange if we need to, and find them any kind of support that we can, whether it's internal support or external support.
Right.
So there's been a couple, maybe, and I've had a lot of moms in the short amount of time that I've been here. But yeah, it's been a very rare thing. I think maybe only 2 have been, kind of received that negatively, and they're just kind of stuck in there. A phrase that I hear a lot of moms say is, but it's not ideal. My situation isn't ideal. So sometimes when I let them know, at all of us, whether it's a pregnancy or finances or whatever, we all run into things from the time that we're born until the time that we pass away, situations that are not ideal. And again, that does not determine, that is life. And that doesn't determine the value of someone else's life because of your circumstances or because something is not ideal.
Right. And it's always a good reminder that our circumstances are temporary. Abortion is permanent.
That's exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people like hearing that the moms that we help are really receptive to it. Especially people who we have pro-choice donors, which is the craziest thing. I mean, it's cool. Wow. Like I'll take money from anybody to help these women, of course, like I think that people in general, pro-choice, pro-life, like hearing that women are wanting this help. And I think that even pro-life donors like hearing that because they like to know that their money is going to a woman who truly wants to better her life as well as choose life, who truly wants to do that. So I think that's extremely important. About how many moms do you think you've canceled? This is not on my questions. I'm just so curious.
How many moms have I counseled total? I do not know how many I have counseled in total, but I know that right now I have 26.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing.
It's a lot.
Wow. You got to be
and I have a toddler and I'm pregnant. So.
Oh my gosh, you're pregnant. Congratulations.
Oh
my gosh, I did it. Well, this is great. Oh my gosh, congrats. How far along are you?
I will be, what day is today? Today's Thursday. I will be 18 weeks tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a girl.
That is so exciting.
And her name is Francesca, so her nickname will be Frankie.
Yeah, really excited. Oh, so exciting. My gosh, this is the best podcast so far.
Yes, and one of the things that's really helpful is for some of the moms, and I don't just jump in and be, my first call, like, hey, guess what? I'm pregnant too, because that's not, it's about them. But you can kind of tell between the personalities and when it would be the time. Some of these moms, they feel so relieved when I, especially if we're around the same gestation period, if I tell them hey, listen, not only are you not alone because Let Them Live is here for you and we're going to support you in any way that, is fit that you need. But I'm also pregnant as well. And I would just love and be so honored if I could walk with you in this journey and we can do this together and talk about the good things, the exciting things, the ultrasounds, and when you're feeling them kick, and we can talk about the things that are, really kind of suck, like being sick, pregnancy sickness, and the funny things like the food cravings. And then we can both, together watch, at the end, our beautiful, perfect babies come out and we can bond over that. So
I love that. That's kind of amazing too, because in your role as pregnancy counselor, and it doesn't always happen, but you probably get the opportunity to also kind of become a friend. I've counseled women that I find out are about the same age as me. And, I'm like, okay, we've been through probably very similar things in our life, or, I struggle with anxiety. So when a mom is like, I'm having terrible anxiety, I'm like, I'm right there with you, girl. We're going to do this together, So that's pretty amazing that you get to relate in that way.
Yes.
Which kind of leads into my next question. Do you have you found that you maintain the relationships with the moms after they choose life? Do they want to still have a relationship with you, or have you met any of them in person?
I wish that I would have met some of my moms in person. I haven't gotten to have that opportunity yet. I hope that I can soon. But I haven't had a whole lot of moms since I just started in August. I haven't had a ton of them give birth yet. But definitely when they do, I leave it up to them, the majority of them. Like, we talk for a while and exchange photos, and we'll have phone calls and texting every week of, how are you doing? How is baby doing? How are you healing? And you can kind of tell, like, I don't want to wind up being like bombarding. And when they're ready to kind of like done with the program, they're finished, they feel stable, they're kind of spreading their wings. I don't want to just kind of be in their ear and make them feel like they're forced to stay in contact with me. But a lot of them, they love that support. I mean, I had a first time mom who it was my first mom, my first time. She was also a first time mom, and she was alone. She didn't have family. She didn't have a lot of friends. She was 19 years old. It was her first baby. And after the baby was born, and even before, she was texting me like, what should I buy them on a baby list? What do I do when I want to take a shower, but I have the baby here, and asking me all these questions. So me as a pretty new mom, because my youngest is 1.5, or my first child is 1.5. I'm just like, what a cool opportunity that I can talk to them, and we can relate about being moms and stuff. So
right. And you get to learn too, like you share like mom tips and hacks, and, for them to just to know that they have someone that can relate to them. That's pretty awesome. I'm really excited to be a mom. I can't wait. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome, but that's really amazing. So, my other question is, out of the moms that you've counseled, have you found that a majority of them have chosen life, or like ones that maybe ended up having an abortion? Like, can you describe what that feels like?
Yeah. So for the amount of moms that I had, there's 2 that I know absolutely positively wound up having an abortion. There winds up being sometimes where they kind of go MIA, and some of them, maybe they didn't abort, and they're just kind of found their own support and they feel okay on their own. And there's others that we kind of assume probably did. But for the 2 that I know absolutely did, it was rough. There was one mom that we just, I feel like we definitely went above and beyond, and we offered her everything that we possibly could for long-term outside resources, inside resources. And she was really struggling. I mean, she wasn't rude by any means, but she was very nervous and just really on edge, and thought, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And we tried to, I tried to be silent when I felt like she needed silence, and speak and reach out when I felt like that was the right thing to do. And ultimately, after a few weeks, she said, I just have to follow through with abortion. And of course, you're just like red alert, and you're in the software tagging everyone in your team saying, all hands on deck, what can we do? And when they follow through with that anyway, so that was a mom that I actually had already had multiple counseling sessions with, and she followed through with it. So that stinks. Anytime you lose a baby, it's a battle lost, and it really stinks. But on a more positive note, that's the only mom that I had already counseled, and then she followed through with it. Everybody else has chosen life. The one other person that I knew had an abortion, she had reached out, and she just wasn't answering me. And she had actually accidentally put a typo in on her phone number. And then I got her email, and I'm like reaching out, what's going on? And she said, oh, I actually followed through and got an abortion. And I feel absolutely horrible. She was so upset. She had found out the gender. It was a girl. And she just said, I feel so horrible. I just want to die. Mm-hmm. And that is such a horrible, horrible thing to hear. Yeah. And what we can do on our end is just like send out, be there for them, of course, and let them know, I'm here. If you want to talk to me, we are here. But here's also like post-abortive resources, right. Some that are national and some that are local in their community that you look up. But
yeah, it's hard. You mourn the life that was lost, and it's extremely heartbreaking. I've been there. Like, I understand. And I remember one mom in particular, like I would just offer everything under the sun, and it just wasn't enough. And I remember crying over that baby. And then it goes even a step further when you're working with a mom who is just so set on abortion. You're doing everything you can. She goes through that abortion, and then immediately tells you that she like just wants to die because she
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
And in that moment, like, it's really hard to describe, but you as a counselor, your heart just must like shatter into pieces, because it's not an I told you so moment. It's like my heart is broken for your baby. My heart is broken for you.
Mhm.
And how maybe describe, like, how do you separate out, or have you struggled with, because when we were counseling the first couple of moms that ended up having an abortion, I felt guilty. I felt like, could I have said something different? Could I have done something different? Could I have, done more? Have you had that feeling before, or do you just kind of take comfort in the fact that you have literally put everything out there that you could?
Yeah, I mean that's ultimately what it came down to, and like so the like I said, there was only two that I know for certain aborted, and the one we really never even got to speak, but the other person, yeah, I mean it is so difficult because I am one of those people who says I should have said this, I could have done that, or I'll be something will wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning that I'm just like, oh, I'm an idiot. Why didn't I XYZ? That particular mom and I was like, listen, if there is any other chance and hope of this baby, being saved and this mom being helped, it's you. It was one of those all hands on deck moments, and the plan that we, support plan that we offered her was just so extensive, and we did everything, and it wasn't happening. Yeah, the guilt, and that was the first time that it happened, so it was so difficult, and I just
Yeah.
prayed. It hits you really hard, and it sticks with you for a while. But like you said, the way to, I think now that I've been doing this a little longer, and that's whether someone winds up following through with abortion, or it's a different decision
Mhm.
that could have helped them, not like we gave them all the tools and they decided to not,
Right.
maybe even they had their baby, which is a wonderful victory, but maybe they didn't choose to utilize a lot of the other help that we provided them with. So they're kind of stuck in a
Right.
crappy situation. That kind of feels like not a complete win either. But you just have to navigate it, that that you did everything in your
Right.
power and your entire team's power to
Right.
offer. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great motivation to just come into work. I mean, I do this because, to me, this is more like a passion than it is like going into a
Yes.
job. But that's why every single day you just give everything you have. And that kind of leads into my next point. This is also why it's so important to take breaks, because you have to like recharge yourself so that when you are going into a situation to counsel a mom, you can give her 100%. You can give 100% to this work. And from my own experience, it is really easy to get super burned out, because the boundaries between work and life, especially if your heart is in it, can get
Yep.
really sticky and really messy. So tell me, like, does this work ever take an emotional and mental toll on you? Like, if it does, like, what are some of your tips and tricks that you use to overcome this? Like, how do you separate so that you can give 100%?
Girl, I'm still trying to learn how to totally do
Yeah,
that.
me
It's
too. Me
actually
too.
so it's actually so funny because I was just talking to Tasha and Sophia were talking to me about this, and they were just like, we want to talk about time management. And by your time management, we mean you need to take out some time for yourself because you're constantly working. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's the only criticism that I have, I guess that's good. But you're right. I mean, in terms of a work-life balance, I'm like constantly trying to, figure out how to do that better. And I'll get there. But you're right. It's because your heart's in it. I mean, I
Right.
have told moms before, like, I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you call me as soon, my phone's on, and that has happened before, that they're texting me and
Yeah.
they're in a crisis and I am up, and that's fine. But in terms of emotionally, it just took me a lot of just going through it enough to where I'm just like, okay, I did have to tell myself, especially when you get a brand new mom and it's your first phone call with her, you have to be kind of in the mental space where you don't have all this mental noise of everything else and a
Right.
million other people going on in the background. That woman's got your full attention, um, so that you can give her all the energy that she needs. You have a clear
Right.
brain. So, I
Right.
mean, and yeah, it's just,
It's more of a challenge to take the time off. I feel like I
yes.
in the past I've found myself like kind of nudging our staff or whatever, our volunteers, to like actually take a break. It's not so much like, hey, you're not doing enough work. It's like, stop working.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you need to step away. And if you don't, I'm gonna like put you on a leave. Like you need to take
that happened to me. Yeah, I was on
reset.
I was supposed to take a break. Like, I'm putting your flag status to red because you've got to take time out for yourself.
You're going into time out pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, it's good because this is, as a pregnancy counselor, you're taking on a lot. Like you're taking in a lot as well. And it might actually just, you have to be maybe even a certain personality type to be able to be a pregnancy counselor because other people like myself, I kind of just absorb other people's emotions. And then it kind of sends me into like, not a great place. Yeah. So you have to have kind of a steely resolve a little bit, like kind of a tough exterior while being soft and, welcoming and loving, but also being able to kind of draw some lines. So
yeah, I feel like you and I are a lot alike. Because a lot of the stuff that you're saying, I'm like, totally me. Exactly.
Yep.
It definitely can drain you. And I'm that type of person where I guess I want to like be the solution, not because I think that I'm great or anything like that, but because you love these people so much and you care about them so much. You just want to solve their problems. Right. And that's how, there's been multiple moms of mine where it's just like, if I had the ability, I would have flown out there with them and been in the hospital with them. And, my one girl.
Been there, done that. It's super cool.
I know. I would love to do it at some point, but my one girl, she just had a C-section. She has a 1-year-old and she has absolutely nobody. And I so badly had wished that I could fly across the country. She's in California. Because I'm in Pennsylvania, so total opposite side, to just be there with her and cook for her and do whatever she needed when I hear that she's struggling. I'm just like, oh gosh, what can I do? So.
I love hearing this because this just shows like anyone who's watching or listening, like the passion, how deep it goes with our pregnancy counselors, like with our staff, with our volunteers. Like this is so much more than just, a job. Like this is like, you have a heart of gold and it shows through this. As a pregnancy counselor, what advice would you give to other pregnancy counselors or to other people considering becoming a pregnancy counselor?
What I would have to say is really give it to God and do it for the glory of God. And if you're thinking about becoming a pregnancy counselor, obviously it's not just a job, like we've been saying, like it is a passion. And for me, I feel that God has a destiny for people in their life of things that they're meant to do. And for some people, it might be a particular job. For some people, it might be some type of talent or whatever. But I definitely, for me, it is definitely this. And so I think when I went into this from the very beginning, when I realized like, okay, I'm going to be this pregnancy counselor, what all is that going to entail? I immediately, and for my first call with the first mom, I just prayed and said, God, this is for your glory. I need you to speak through me and I need you to keep me humble the entire way. And that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I would give, people looking into it or who already are.
Yeah, that's
great. It's all for the glory of God. Yeah.
Always. If you were talking to someone who is listening that was in a crisis pregnancy or has an abortion scheduled or, just isn't totally sure if they're going to choose life, like what would be your advice to them if they're hearing you? Like if there's one thing that you could say to them, what would that be?
Definitely there is hope and it's really important to talk to somebody. Even if somebody is pro-choice or if they're, it is really important to see all of your choices, to look at all the different options. And I can't tell you how many women had come to us and they had a prior abortion and they, it's very quickly after they found out they were pregnant, went to the abortion facility and got an abortion. And then later, not long later, they realized all the different support that they could have had. And then they come to us again because they don't want to go through that again. The most people who get an abortion, they don't do it because they just willy-nilly want to get an abortion. They don't care.
Right.
They do it because they feel like they have to. So whether it's, you're the person and you're pregnant and you are in that crisis right now, or you're someone who considers yourself pro-choice and you personally feel like that's what is moral for you, just for people to understand that most women, like I'll use the same phrase again, they feel like the rug was pulled out from under them and everything is moving so fast. And when they go into these abortion clinics, I have read in some states they're supposed to counsel the girls before and say, what's your life situation? What's going on? They don't. We ask if they've gone to the come to our program later because they're not sure. Like, what did they say to you? How was your experience when you had this consultation at the abortion clinic? And they just try to basically run them through their like cattle. Yeah. And then they're not counseling them to show them like, here are all your choices as to how you absolutely can make this work. So between that and just, like I said, the fact that all life has inherent value, not a single woman that I counseled, if she had had a previous abortion, I have never had a single one say to me, I don't regret that. Every single one said that was, number one, that was so much worse than what it was explained to me that it was going to be. And number two, it was horrible. I regret it. And I don't want to do it again. Mm-hmm. And then they have to live with, if they had a previous child or they have one after that, then they have to face the time where they're like, okay, so this baby of mine, their life mattered, but this one's really didn't because of my circumstances. And that's a really tough thing for them to swallow.
Right. No, I think that's really good advice. Like, again, if you're listening and you're in a crisis pregnancy or you're seeing this, like, you have time. You don't have to be rushed into it. You have time. Reach out to Let Them Live. Reach out to a pregnancy center. Like, really weigh those options and don't let a temporary circumstance determine, a very permanent decision.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I tell all of my moms is like suffering and difficulty. Those circumstances are often temporary, but when you choose abortion, you can never get that baby back. It's done.
Right. And that's just heartbreaking. But I really appreciate you coming on, Victoria. I really appreciate just your perspective. It's so clear to me, and it should be clear to everyone that this is just like you were made to be a pregnancy counselor. This is just like you just exude love. And like I mentioned before, anyone who, who is a mom who gets you as her counselor is so blessed. And I am very thankful that you came on and gave me some of your time to talk about this. I just really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm so thankful for Let Them Live. And I'm so happy that God let me here. And again, in terms of for me and what I do, I have to give all the glory to him. So
absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Well, thank you again. And I hope you have an amazing night.
You too. Take care.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Let Them Live podcast. I would like to give a special shout out to Patrick at Moon Shadow Studios for doing such an amazing job of editing our podcasts. Let Them Live is a Christian nonprofit dedicated to supporting women who are considering abortion primarily due to financial burden. 73% of women have abortions because of financial struggles, and we're here to bridge that gap. Our goal is to provide the emotional and financial support women need to feel empowered to choose life. If our cause resonates with you and you're interested in learning more, getting involved, or making a donation, please visit our website.
This episode of the Let Them Live podcast was produced for you by Moon Shadow Studios. Put your podcast in good hands today and take advantage of our special first-time client discounts by visiting moonshadowstudios.biz or by following us on Instagram and Twitter at Moon Shadow Studios.